Thursday, everybody. And now let's talk automation.
Happy Third Thursday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us for our first episode of 2022. We've got a really great conversation coming up, and I also want to point out that today we've got 3 Wisconsin women on with Kieran today, and I always like to give my little jab when we get to have him outnumbered. So that's a fun little note as we get started. As is always the case, we want you guys to head into the chat and make sure that you're sharing where you're joining from. Maybe if you have more pleasant temperatures than the rest of us here in Wisconsin, I was saying my watch reads -0, which equates to about -17 degrees Celsius. So let us know if we can be jealous of you where you're at. But we're also going to get started with our icebreaker question. And today we are talking about the creator economy. And all 4 of us fall at some level in the realm of a creator. So to get started, I'm just going to kind of go around the room to everybody and have you do a quick introduction and share what made you take the leap towards being a creator. So Coreyne, I'll come to you first with that question. If you can give everybody a quick intro and then let us know what drove you towards creating.
Okay, thanks, Emma. I am Coreyne Woodman-Holoubek, founder of Progressive HR and the host of Progressive HR Live on LinkedIn, as well as the founder of the Progressive HR newsletter. So really simply, I became a creator to make income. My in-person events and opportunities were basically shut down during the pandemic, and I had to find another form of compensation. So creating content has also helped me express my own perspective.
I gotta be quicker on the draw with those zoom outs. Kristin, I'm gonna come to you, and thank you, Coreyne. We'll hear another perspective for what kind of drives the creators.
Absolutely. My name is Kristin Strunk, and I'm currently working as the Director of Employee Experience for Harley-Davidson. And I started creating content without really knowing that's what I was doing when I started to really engage on LinkedIn as a way to network and get input and ideas and really start conversations around leadership and human resources topics, just really to become an opportunity for good conversation. And I think Coreyne was the one that actually pointed out to me that I was creating content to begin with. So I think I started on accident.
That's fair enough. And I think we were all joking about, like, we're glad that she pushed you towards that creator mindset. Kieran, you are up next.
Alrighty, 2 primary reasons why. One, I believe in sharing. The more we share, the more knowledge we get out there, the more everyone benefits. I'm not necessarily a fan of very gated community or what consultancies do, which is charge a large amount of money and have a very small number of customers. Get the content out there, we'll grow a bigger economy, a la Gary Vee style. That's number 1. Number 2 is I gave away my brand for years. So we won lots of awards, technology awards, you name it, over the years. And I used to send everybody else up on stage. Never got any recognition for it or whatever else. I wasn't looking for it at the time. But it's only when you look back, when you see all those things, that the number of opportunities you could have created for yourself to share more knowledge or to get more jobs or whatever else, I lost those for many years. It's in the last couple of years I've been in LinkedIn. That's got me my current job, my previous job, my job before that, speaking opportunities, and a ton of other things. So those 2 primary reasons, Emma.
Great. And just to kind of round out that icebreaker question before we dive into the rest of it, you know, from my standpoint, very similar to what Kieran said, I started to put videos and stuff out on LinkedIn, also kind of tied to Coreyne and the idea of being, I joke, a lonely salesperson at home during COVID and wondering, how am I going to continue to have conversations? How do I continue to educate people on the importance of what we're talking about today as it's tied to the creator economy, but also that idea of just digital transformation and the importance of driving that initiative forward. And being a previous teacher, the idea of educating people is very near and dear to my heart. And so it's actually turned into a really great outlet for me to be able to push that forward as well. So as we get moving into the conversation today, we're going to be talking about kind of high-level ideas of who the creator is, what the creator economy is, and then diving into some more kind of complex ideas as we go on with the conversation. how that's going to shape what traditional HR departments are doing to recruit and retain, as well as what does the future of this look like. But before we dive into all of that, Coreyne, I want to come to you to get kind of some more of our definition type stuff out of the way. So this idea of the creator economy might be new to people. Can you give us just a real quick high level overview of what we're talking about when we say the creator economy?
Yeah, Emma, thanks. Really straightforward. The creator economy is a class of businesses built by independent content creators and community builders. And the creator ecosystem is the network of platforms, software, and finance tools designed to help content creators with growth and monetization.
You were very speedy there. Thank you for that, like, wonderful definition. So then, Kristin, jumping off of that, I want to ask the question of, like, who is a creator? We kind of already shared that we fall into that bucket, but what else does that entail?
I think it's important to understand that creators are really a group of people who are sharing original content, Kieran's point, ideas, tools with the world. It can be in the form of blogs, posts, graphics. We see a lot of newsletters happening right now, videos, bots, and anything that really gets someone else to think, to change their behavior, to try something new, to start a new conversation with someone. And when we think about creators, and Coreyne mentioned a group of businesses or people who are in the business of creating, some of us who are creators aren't necessarily really running it as a business, but are really putting content out there to generate additional conversations. And so the business aspect of it is certainly a huge part, and a lot of benefit comes out of that as well.
Wonderful. Thank you. Before we jump to Kieran with our next question of why is this something we need to be paying attention to, and why is this something we need to be honing in on, I want to just come over here real quick to some of the comments that we've got running through. So we have folks from all over the world joining us today. We've got another Wisconsinite coming in. Hi, Trisha. As well as I think I saw someone else joining in from, well, we've got Kieran here in Ireland.
We've got George from Greece as well in there. We've got
I was looking for his comment and now I can't find it to put it up on screen. But we've got people from all over the world joining us. We're excited always to see that. And again, as we start talking about the importance of this, what other opportunity did we have to get onto an international stage on a random Thursday morning and start talking to all of our friends about what we're excited about? So with that, Kieran, why is this something that is critical for not only people individually, but organizations to be paying attention to?
Okay, let's try and cover off both of those. So the world has changed, Emma. If you notice over the last numbers of years, if we talk about Web 2.0 with the social era, then you've seen websites and companies like Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn really take off. And the traditional media fell backwards. You know, YouTube is probably the biggest news website in the world. And therefore, companies have had to migrate to where the viewing audience are, where the eyeballs are. It's as simple as that. Others who are pushing this agenda, and again, it's not me necessarily, Satya Nadal turned around and said a couple of years ago, companies would be product or service companies and content companies. And what he was doing was talking about the same thing, recognizing that transition away from mainstream, or what was mainstream media, newspapers and everything else, to very much a digital economy. And if companies don't go where their customers are going or where those eyeballs are, then they're simply going to lose out. You only have to look at the circulation in newspapers to understand who, what, why, where, and when. Companies that don't follow trend disappear. Also, if companies actually want to get to their audience and have one-on-one conversations and more authentic conversations, and that's what people expect in the social age, then they're going to have to go on the social platforms as well. So that's companies. From an individual or personal perspective, I think the world has changed lots over the years. We now have got our voice. You mentioned a moment ago, Emma, about, how are we actually transmitting across the world? Well, that's thanks to improvements in digitization and digital software. So if you look at what we're doing at the moment, we're sitting on StreamYard, which is $20 a month, broadcasting across the world. We are on LinkedIn, which is LinkedIn Live. It's free. Afterwards, you and I will take this on Veed, cut it up into segments and repost it and put it out through multiple channels. And that I know we're going to come to a little bit later on. But I think we ourselves want our own voice. We have something to say. We have something to share. And now, unlike a long while ago when we would have had to write a newspaper article or beg a magazine to let us in, we can share that knowledge across the world. Number one, that's fun. The second thing is we can build our own brand. So we're not reliant on our employer wholly. We're not relying on a PR agency. We can actually own this ourselves, if that makes sense. And then we're in control of our own message. We're in control of our building our own brand. And then all of the benefits that come off the back of that. And some of those I mentioned earlier on around speaking opportunities or jobs or books or whatever. So I think there's really valid reasons why both groups are on this platform, branding in this particular way. And I think it's going to continue for quite some time with some twists and changes we'll talk about later.
So you set me up perfectly, Kieran, for my next question to come to Coreyne. Again, now that I put some comments on, we have even more popping in. So we've got Harrison joining us. I see David representing from Cleveland. And then also we've got a joining guest from Seattle in the dark with us as well. So again, even more time zones coming in. But Kieran mentioned this idea of like these technology platforms that are enabling us to be able to drive forward with creating content and getting our word and message out a bit more. Coreyne, can you dive into that idea of specifically how technology, and dare I say the word digital transformation, is helping us along on this journey of the creator economy really reaching the point that it's at today?
So nobody really noticed, but StreamYard kicked me out. So I didn't exactly hear everything that what Kieran was saying. But I did hear like the last portion where he's talking about the democratization of the technology and in the creator mode. So, really technology and digital transformation, there's the word again, really democratized creation for everyone. So platforms like YouTube, Canva, StreamYard, they all have easy to use templates, low code or no code, that we used to seek a technical professional for. So now we all can do what we want to do when we need to do it. So, for example, YouTube was the catalyst for the video creator, and Canva was the catalyst for graphics that we use on LinkedIn. StreamYard and Twitch were the catalysts for the gamers with their fans, streaming through live streams, conversations, just, a lot of people on Twitch just sit there and say, ask me any questions, or watch me while I'm gaming. I even know a woman who has fans that just watch her feed her pet rabbit on Twitch, and she earns money doing this. So basically all of our passions, all of our interests, going through one of these platforms, and it's really like we, as Kieran mentioned, we don't need to get a publicist. We don't need to have PR. We're our own PR. We're our own brand. And that's really all this technology and all these platforms that were created are really opening up this creator economy to everyone. So, and then talk about TikTok. TikTok really brought this home during the pandemic. It kicked off nano content. And now one of the most popular things to do is to produce nano content, just little short bite-sized forms through the technology that TikTok offers us. The music you can add, the video editing you can add, the stickers you can add. I mean, anyone can do this. It is so simple, so easy. And then we get kind of further down the line when we talk about NFTs, so non-fungible tokens, creating digital art in platforms like OpenSea and Super Rare. So we're moving into this conversation now about technology and digital transformation, giving us the ability to build communities. And then those are communities, again, around your passions, around your interests, around simply what you're learning. There's a lot of creators out there that are like thinking, oh, I really want to learn X. So I'm going to set up a Twitch. I'm going to set up a live stream through StreamYard to LinkedIn. And I'm basically just going to show everybody or have conversations about what I'm learning and how I'm learning it. And that is content. So, it's really the ability to monetize directly through your fans without being subject to algorithms or to massive financial outlay. Whether that's platform fees or startup expenses. And then there's also this very interesting platforms, part of the creator economy, like Patreon. which give creators, fans the opportunity to tip them or to give creators, fans the opportunity to be part of the creator's product or own the part of the creator's product. And that's the way that these creators can monetize and build community. So talking about Patreon, talking about Ko-Fi or Buy Me a Coffee, it makes it okay for creators to ask for tips. And if you think about it, walking down the street or in a park, we don't think anything about, or even at a live music concert, we don't think anything about giving a musician or an actor or a mime a tip for what they're doing. They're creating content. So, really, these platforms have democratized and have opened this opportunity up for content creators to ask for monetization from their fans. And that creates a sustainable income for creators. And so that's another reason that technology and digital transformation has really allowed creators independence.
Thank you, Coreyne. And I think at least with me, I need to get on that like feeding rabbit train and start making my money that way. I'll have to find some rabbits first. But Doug also made an interesting point when we were talking about kind of that nano content and also how we can start to use some of this stuff that psychologically plays on helping people get engaged with our content and stay engaged with our messaging and that kind of thing. There's some really interesting, we probably won't dive into all of that today, psychological elements that come along with how we create content and what that looks like. As we've talked about at this point, we've talked a lot about the individual creator, how technology is enabling them. But I teased this idea earlier, and Kristin, I want to come to you with this question. This isn't happening in its own little like container where there's creators and it's not influencing what's happening within organizations and how that influences things like acquiring talent, retaining talent. Can you help us understand how this maybe has the ability to impact what companies are doing to go and find people that they want to bring into their organization? What does a personal brand have to do with that? And how is this all tied into more of a traditional HR environment from that standpoint?
No, it's a really great topic of conversation. And I think as we go into these new ways of working, as we as organizations look at what's being called the Great Resignation or the Great Reshuffling, whatever name you want to put on it, we as organizations have the opportunity to look at the way that we hire and determine if there are roles or functions in the organization where content creation or social media following is an asset to the organization itself. And those are conversations that we need to start to have up front. So if we are looking for someone in our marketing department, for example, negotiating how you might leverage, or if that person is open to allowing you to leverage their followers or their automatic group of people who are interested, their fans. So these are conversations that I think are going to continue to evolve. And organizations should be looking at what their employees are producing online to determine if there are ways to ask employees to funnel talent or followership to the organization as a whole. And again, those are some gray lines based on personal branding, right? So we all have our personal brand. But those negotiations and those conversations do need to start to happen, because there's always been this concept of, what I do online is very separate from what I might do for my business or for the organization that I work for. And of course, those lines are starting to blur, and they blur very, very quickly in the creator economy. So there might potentially be an opportunity for employees to create content for the organization itself, whether internally or externally, right? So we might have people who have this creative bent, who, to Coreyne's point, understand how to use some of these brand new tools, and then really start to think about how could we leverage those tools either inside our organizations or externally with some of our messaging. And again, the slippery slope comes in the form of that intellectual property and that personal brand, and where do those things overlap? But the real opportunity for the organization is huge. There's huge untapped creativity potential that lives in our employees as they might start to put together this concept of being a creator or being someone who has an opinion or has a couple of things that they really like to share and talk about. And I think that these creators or this creativity is generally an untapped talent pool within an organization.
I think that is going to be really interesting to see how that continues to evolve over time. But I think the piece that untapped creativity and that autonomy to be able to share a message and get information out is the part that's so exciting to me. And I'm fortunate that I work with an organization like some of my coworkers are on right now and supporting us through these conversations and supporting that idea of sharing knowledge in our industry. But there's a fine line in certain scenarios that you have to walk, and how do you represent your brand and represent your own ideas. And so I think that will be a really interesting kind of paradigm to watch over time as we continue down this path of more creativity and more free-flowing ideas. And this actually helps me lead into the next question that we're going to probably touch on in a couple of different directions. But Kieran, I'm going to come to you first. So Coreyne laid some breadcrumbs as we were talking about different technology with things like NFTs, but then also how does the future of technology and the direction that we see things like NFTs and Web3 and all of the rest of this play into the idea and the future of the creator economy?
Yeah, so I suppose let's try and diagnose some of those things together. So if we look further forward, people have got used to creating and they can use all the tools as we've described at this moment in time for relatively few dollars to get their own or their company's brand out, or a highlight of both. So that bit there is going to continue, the basic tech. If you look at the websites or the social media websites that are in existence, TikTok, Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever, Instagram, they're going to continue for the next while. But if you notice, there will always be someone else coming along, because no one likes to follow what their mom and dad followed. There will always be something, but there's a shift. And what Coreyne was referring to there is, if you look at the rise in blockchain technologies and NFTs, non-fungible tokens, then what you're starting to recognize is a shift towards, instead of someone or a big company owning our data, and you've seen the scandals and people are getting frustrated with that, it's about decentralizing the content so that everybody owns their own data and is then allowed to do something with it. And that shift is not only a technology shift, but it's also a shift in terms of mindset around monetization, as Coreyne was mentioning a moment ago. If you think about it, all these platforms describe themselves as free, but they're not. The tax that we pay these websites is in our personal data, and it's in the blood, sweat, and often tears of content creators like ourselves, actually giving them content to encourage more people to come to the platform so that they can sell advertising. And what you're noticing a slight shift is creators like ourselves are starting to get really frustrated that we're spending hours and weeks and years building all this content, but getting no value back. That's playing into that decentralized economy, not only the data privacy, but the irritation about not getting paid and monetized for something that's making these companies billions and billions and billions. So you will start to see blockchain and NFTs happening in bigger space. At the same time, you've seen the growth in the gamer economy, where you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of millions of people who are used to living and playing, or broadly spending as much time as living and playing in these games, where micropayments enabled by blockchain or other technologies are taking place. And it's become so apparent that this is and works, and that these folks are more or less our next trained, and I use the word metaverse audience. And that's where things are going to aim. You'll have heard the phrase a little while ago, because Microsoft changed its name to Meta. The metaverse is a place, instead of this 2D reality, like a Zoom call or whatever else, where you'll get your own avatar, you get to put on the kit that allows you to touch and feel. That will become ever so more important and grow in importance. So content creators like ourselves will have to shift into the metaverse. Brands will have to shift into the metaverse as well. So all of a sudden, you have a whole set of new experiences and a whole set of new places to create. And you may have to create avatars and advertising and do talks like this somewhere else. And the existing media those will continue to expand. And hopefully, to goodness, it will offer more people more opportunities to express themselves in different ways, and companies the same. The key thing, and the only thing that will remain the same, is the content creators that put out tremendous amounts of value and do it in an honest way, not the influencer who put stuff out and pretend to own it and get paid a fortune in the background, but don't let on that they're doing that. Those that create tremendous value, no matter what platform they're in, will succeed. But as a content creator myself, I hope I not only succeed, but get the financial rewards for it. It's not why I'm doing it, but I certainly didn't set out to make LinkedIn, Facebook, or whoever else billions and billions of dollars a year with the risk that I could get banned tomorrow morning and my content and my connections and everyone else disappear around me, which is why I rant very often about not just staying on a platform like LinkedIn, but distribute your audience in as many places as you can, including your own website, so you protect yourself.
I was busy trying to comment about here Kieran goes on an Irish rant, and then you ended your rant really quickly. So I didn't get my comment in, and then I was slow to coming back.
Yeah, and you were on mute. Remember
I
that.
know, but I didn't start talking until I came off of it. So that's the key there, Kieran. Keep your comments to yourself, sir. I asked the question back out to the audience. We have a couple of things that have pulled through as well. So Brian was saying that he thinks, again, kind of similar to what you were saying, there's going to be eventually more control over the content that's being created. And I think it's Ryan, if I'm thinking correctly of how things are pulling through, talking about that we're at this really interesting point right now where maybe some of the economy is going to start turning more towards the idea of kind of the Shark Tank and how things work in terms of pitching ideas and seeing how that goes. We've got a couple of minutes now, and I want to come to you, Coreyne, to ask the same question. And from your viewpoint, going off of what Kieran said, what other things should we be watching and thinking about as we see this economy continue to grow and change over time?
Yeah, to Kieran's point, the next step is the ownership economy. And Kieran talked a little bit about this in regards to brands and owning your own content and where that goes. So 2 parts of the ownership economy is that, it centers around that software that's being built and operated and owned by participants, and tech vendors are creating platforms for creators. So we can own our own content. So, or we can start agencies, or we can become creator founders. So we're owning that. And some examples there are Zexal and Discord. Discord is doing some great things right now with helping people create their own servers. And then there's another one that's called Mighty Networks. And Mighty Networks is helping people build, helping creators build communities from 1 to 100. So that is one part of the creator, that's one part of the next step, which is the ownership economy. And then the next step is this idea, going back to what Kristin was saying about having a creator worker because of their brand. So this, I'm coining creator worker. LinkedIn has talked recently about the creator employee. I see the creator worker is different because they are not an employee. They are somewhat of a part-time employee, and they are a part-time creator worker that you contract just as you would like a celebrity for a brand deal. So, a creator worker has fans inside the organization, and a creator worker has fans outside the organization. Inside the organization, having that creator worker within your organization, helps with retention with your other employees because they're big fans of that person. And then outside, your consumers are fans of that person. So again, it's, looking at what Kristin was saying is that we really have to think along the lines of like, it's going to get really, really, really blurry, and there's going to be need for policy and different types of organizational models to introduce or to bring in these creator workers. A really interesting thing is that the start is this idea of the 32-hour workweek act. And then also really the start of like this, the CEO of Panasonic said that they're bringing in an optional 4-day work week for their employees because he hopes that the employees go out and get a side hustle as what they're doing with their extra day. So he really wants to attract that talent pool of the creator worker. And then I just want to say that the ownership economy this is a quote from Jesse Walden through Variant, is that the ownership economy doesn't always mean a lateral distribution of tokens, stock options, or equity. It doesn't necessarily mean an application of a service that it's entirely built into the blockchain, but rather it means that ownership, which may manifest in the form of novel economic rewards, platform governance, and new forms of social capital. can be the keystone to all user experiences and the space for plenty of design and exploration.
Thank you, Coreyne. I think you gave us a lot of information to unpack there. And before we wrap up, I see that we are at time. I want to put this question up here and just kind of encourage everybody to come in and interact with this idea of, does content that's being created have value in itself, or is it a means to an end to drive conversion of some sort? And I think there's an either or, but this would be a really interesting one to see people talk about a little bit more in the comments, since we are at our time today. I just want to take a moment and say thank you to both Coreyne and Kristin for joining us today. I think this was a wonderful discussion, and I'm hoping we continue to see comments come in over the course of the rest of the day today. And I would be remiss if I didn't give a plug to our next month conversation. So anybody that's here, keep an eye out. We'll be setting up the event page for that next discussion, which we will be kind of taking a bit of this and moving into the area of looking at blockchain and cryptocurrencies and metaverse and a little bit of that kind of stuff as well. We've got a couple of really great experts in that space that are going to be joining us as well. But thank you again, Coreyne and Kristin, and always a pleasure, Kieran. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Happy Third Thursday, and we'll see you next month.
Thank you, everyone. See you later.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.